Good afternoon and good evening, and welcome to this special event that TalentoTotal is hosting along with Chevening. We have James and Danielle who will be sharing a little information about the amazing opportunities that are offered by the Chevening program. And first and foremost, I'll just give a brief introduction and welcome everyone who is tuned in today, no matter where you are in the world. Could be Brazil, could be the UK, could be Colombia, could be the United States. But thank you once again for joining us today. And I will just briefly introduce myself. I am Jim McCrary. I am the founder and CEO of Talento Total. We are an international nonprofit organization focused on accelerating the careers and professional endeavors of Afro-descendant and indigenous young professionals. So we today have two programs, the Total Law Prep Program and the Total MBA Prep Program, which focuses on the legal profession as well as general business leadership. And we were fortunate enough to be connected to the Chevening program or Chevening's awards recently through a former Talento Total fellow who is now studying in the United Kingdom. And she told us about this amazing program, and we were fortunate enough to be connected with the Chevening team in Latin America. And this is a fantastic opportunity for many candidates across the world, not only in Latin America, but across the world, who have an interest in studying or pursuing an education in the United Kingdom. So without any further ado, I will pass it to Daniel and James to provide a little information and insight into the Chevening program. And another thing that we'll do is make this very interactive. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please chime in via the chat box on YouTube. We have Carol who's monitoring all of the questions that are coming in. So as we go through this webinar, please write any questions or comments that you have. And you can start by doing that right now by letting us know where you're tuning in from. So if you are live in the chat right now, please drop a comment and let us know where you're watching this webinar from, whether it's from Brazil, Colombia, the US. And also please give us a like or a thumbs up on YouTube and share this with your friends and colleagues. We will record this session, so there's an opportunity for you to tune back in on the Talento Total YouTube page and learn about Chevening. So without any further ado, I'll pass it to Daniel and James. I'm not sure who's going first, but we'll let whoever is taking it first go ahead.
Great, thanks ever so much, Jim. So as Jim was saying, my name is James Phillips and I manage the Chevening program here in Brazil. So I work for the British Embassy here in Brazil, and I'm based in Sao Paulo, normally working out of the British Consulate in Sao Paulo. And I'm joined here today by my colleague Danny, who works with me on the Chevening program as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk through a presentation, which we're going to put up on the screen. The presentation is in Portuguese, but I will be talking alongside it in English. So please don't worry if you cannot read Portuguese, because I will be explaining everything in English. I will try and talk sort of quite loudly and quite slowly. I know most people from Latin America are used to an American English accent, and I have a very British accent. So apologies if people are struggling to understand me. Hopefully you're not. But as Jim said, please do put any questions, queries, anything you're not sure of in the comments, and we will happily respond and reply to them afterwards. Okay, so if we go to the presentation, I will explain all about Chevening and what it is. So Chevening scholarships, supporting future leaders to undertake their master's degree in the UK. So what is Chevening? So Chevening is a scholarship scheme. It is funded by the UK government, so it's funded by the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office and partner organisations. It is not only available in Brazil and Latin America, it's available in more than 160 countries around the world. And it finances or it funds master's degrees in any subject area at any university in the UK. So that's England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. Some of the countries not eligible for Chevening are the USA. So apologies if there's anyone here watching from the USA. Chevening is not available for nationals from there. There is a scholarship scheme for USA nationals to go to the UK called the Marshall Scholarship Scheme. So if you're from the UK, please do take a look at that. And the other countries not eligible for Chevening are most countries in Western Europe. But other than that, almost all other countries have Chevening scholarships. So all countries in Latin America, all countries in Africa, Asia, etc. Okay, so what is the objective of the programme of Chevening, or why do we do this? So we, as the UK government, we are looking for future leaders, people that we want to create a relationship with, people that are going to rise to positions of success in their chosen area. And as I mentioned, one thing that's quite unique about Chevening is it is up to the candidate to choose their subject area. So we are not telling people what they should be studying. It is up to the candidate to choose their subject and to demonstrate to us why we should fund them, and to prove to us how they are going to become a future leader in that subject area. Okay, if we go to the next slide. So the type people that we are looking for. So we are looking for people with ambition. And as I've talked about, one of our key aspects here is potential for leadership. We are looking for future leaders. Candidates must have a good academic history. And by that, what we mean is, because you're applying for a UK master's degree, you need to be able to get on to whichever course or university it is that you're applying for. So we do not set a particular score or standard. It is up for the candidate to look at the university and the course they're interested in, and to think about whether the undergraduate degree or the score or grade they have is sufficient to get onto that course. We are also looking for people with what we've called here habilidades interpessoais, or what we say in English, networking skills. We want people that know how to network. There's no point reaching a position of leadership if you're, well, I don't think you would reach a position of leadership if you did not know how to network. But what we want is people that are going to, like I say, reach positions of influence. They're going to be what we call change makers, people that are going to make a difference in their communities, in their professional areas, and in their countries. And to do that, we're after people that know how to network and they know the importance of networking. Okay. So how do you become, or what are the eligibility requirements? So obviously this presentation is just focused on Brazil, but as I have mentioned, Chevening scholarships are offered in all Latin American countries. So you need to be a national of the country that you are applying in. So if you are a Venezuelan national living in Brazil, you can apply for Chevening, but you would need to do that via the Venezuelan site. So when you go onto the Chevening website, it asks you what country or what nationality you are from, and you need to choose your nationality rather than where you are living. You need to have an undergraduate degree. As I've mentioned, you need to be able to get on to a UK master's course. We do not help applicants or tell UK universities that they have to accept these candidates. You need to be able to be accepted on the courses you choose on your own merit. One very important aspect is you need a minimum of 2 years professional work experience, but that experience includes things like internships, work experience. It includes things like weekend work and everything like that. So it does not need to be 2 years post university in a professional job, for example. So how it works is it equates to roughly 1,200 hours of work. And when applying for Chevening, you need to detail how you have spent those hours, whether it is I did 200 hours at an internship. Even if you were still studying at that time, it doesn't matter. As I mentioned, it doesn't need to be paid professional work, but we do not want people straight out of university that have not had any experience of working and being in a professional environment. We're after people that have done internships and have done lots of different things. One other aspect, which is very uncommon, so most people don't need to worry about it, is you cannot have received previous funding from the UK government. And one important difference with Chevening, unlike most scholarship schemes, is there is no age limit. So this year from Brazil, we have people in their 50s studying in the UK, because if you can prove to us that you're a future leader, that you're going to make an impact in your community, country, your area, and you're interested in strengthening links between the UK and Brazil, then you can be chosen for Chevening. You do not have to be a certain age. So this year, I think our youngest scholar is probably 22, 23. And as I mentioned, our oldest scholar is in their 50s. So what other eligibility criteria are there? So as I've mentioned, you need to be able to receive an unconditional offer from one of your university choices. So how it works with Chevening is it's kind of a simultaneous process that you will apply for the UK universities and the courses that you are interested in. We offer no help with that. That is up to the applicant to have a look and to do their research, decide which UK university and which course suits them best. It can be, you need to apply for a minimum of 3 that you will list on your Chevening application. That can be 3 courses at the same university. It can be 3 courses at 3 different universities. It's up to the candidate to decide. But obviously, we would expect to see some symmetry and continuity there. It would be very strange to us if we saw someone had applied for one course at this university and a totally different course that seemed unrelated at another university. So what we're looking for is some sort of continuity and symmetry there. At the same time as you are applying for these courses, you also apply for Chevening. So Chevening is the funding. Chevening is what enables you to be able to do this course overseas in the UK. Chevening, all of the application is done online. So we'll be coming a bit more to about how you apply afterwards. So other eligibility requirements. In the past, you used to, at the time of application, have to prove that you had a sufficient level of English. Now, Chevening no longer requires you to prove that at the time of applying, but your UK university that you are applying for will still require evidence of your English language level. So again, it depends on the UK university as to which course, whether it's TEFL or Cambridge, and which score they accept. So it's up to the candidate to do their research to find out, for me to be accepted on this course, what level of English do I need to be able to reach? And you will need to prove that to the university. In terms of how we assess English through Chevening, the application form is all in English, and if you are selected for interview, the interview will all be in English. So we will assess it at the interview stage and on your application. But bear in mind that depending on the UK university, you will also need to prove your English level to them. And as I mentioned, you will need to speak to that university. All of the information will be on their website about what level, what score they require. So crucial, one of the thing most people are probably interested in. So what does Chevening cover? What do we pay for? So it pays for almost everything. So it covers the entire cost of the tuition fee. So how the cost of studying overseas. The only exception there, and this is important probably for some people on this call, is there is a limit of £18,000 for MBAs. So there is no limit on LLMs or any master's degrees to do with law or any other subject, but there is a Chevening limit. We will fund up to £18,000 of an MBA, but anything above that would need to be covered by the candidate, or the candidate can secure other funding. So you can have Chevening with another scholarship or be supported by an organisation. But for MBA, it's £18,000. Any other course, it's 100% of the course fee. So whilst you are in the UK, if you are successful, you will receive what we call a monthly stipend, and that is what you use to pay for your accommodation, your food, your living costs. That cost changes each year depending on inflation, but this year, it's about £1,400 a month. So in Hayes, that's, what is that, maybe 8,000 Hayes a month. And as I mentioned, that is paid directly into a UK bank account. So the candidate will need to open a UK bank account when they arrive, and it is up to the candidate to spend that money on their accommodation. Again, we do not sort these things out for them because some candidates want to live in halls of residence, some candidates want to live on campus, some scholars, I should say, want to live in the city. So we leave that up to the scholar to sort out, and they are paid a monthly allowance, which is to cover all of their costs. It pays for a return flight to and from the UK, including things like excess baggage, so all of that is included. In terms of a medical cover, the UK government will pay a surcharge on the scholar's behalf so that they are able to access the National Health Service just like a UK national would. So you're able to access UK healthcare for free, just like anyone else in the UK can. It pays for the cost of the visa. So for the UK student visa, we will pay for that as well. And there are also some extra costs, some extra sort of allowances you can apply for whilst you're in the UK. So if, for example, you are studying in London and you're doing a project, or you've become very close with a researcher, say in Edinburgh or Manchester, and you can prove to us that it's in your interest of your degree and maybe your master's dissertation to meet with that researcher, you can apply for funding to take the train up there and meet with them, etc. So there's sort of ad hoc funding you can apply for whilst in the UK. So what more does Chevening offer? And one of the things we really want to reiterate about Chevening is it's not just a scholarship scheme. It's not just here's your money, we're paying for you to go to the UK, and then we never hear from you again, or, you know, it's just the masters. It's much more than that. Chevening has been running for 37 years, as I mentioned, around the world. There's more than 50,000 alumni, nearly 2,000 alumni in Brazil. So it's much more about joining a community of people, joining a community of like-minded people that want to make a difference. They want to strengthen UK-Brazil links. They want to create a better environment for their communities in their countries. So related to that, as well as the scholarship, there is a whole range of networking events, speeches. This year has obviously been challenging in that regard, bearing in mind that the UK is currently in lockdown, and obviously because of the difficulties with COVID. But in sort of non-COVID times, there would be lots of in-person events, speeches, as I mentioned, events. Previous Chevening scholars have been invited into 10 Downing Street, which is the home and office of the Prime Minister, to meet with senior politicians. We have had Chevening scholars in the UK go into the Houses of Parliament to meet parliamentarians, kind of as a sort of knowledge exchange program where the parliamentarians ask about their home countries and what's happening, and the scholars can ask about UK parliamentary law and how it works. So there's a whole range of events that take place throughout the year. So speaking to all of you guys now, hopefully you'll think this might be something for you or your friends or family in the future. Hopefully in the future we'll be back to sort of some degree of normality, and all of these events that I'm talking about now will have returned, and we'll be able to do in-person networking and events again. So a little bit more, as I've mentioned, about Chevening alumni. It's been going on since 1983. And again, I mentioned nearly 2,000 alumni in Brazil, 50,000 alumni or more than 50,000 alumni around the world. And when you join Chevening, you will get access to an online portal which has the contact details of all of these alumni. So again, it's more than just a scholarship. You're being linked up to all of these people that have studied not just from your home country, but from all different countries, and you will get access to them as well. So the timeline, or the timeline for applications. So the current the dates here are obviously in relation to this year, but the dates are always the same regardless. So every August or September time, applications open. It's always end of August, early September, applications open. So in August this year, 2021, applications will open for those people wanting to go to study to the UK in September 2022. So it is a long process. You're looking at start to finish of roughly 1 year. So you need to sort of do your research and be organized for this. This is not something that you can kind of just apply on a whim and hope for the best, right? It's a competitive government scheme for a fully funded scholarship. So as I mentioned, applications every September, August, September, applications open. All of this information is on the website, which if you haven't already seen is www.chevening.org. I'm sure after I finish speaking, me and Danny can put down all the contact details. But on the website, you can sign up for the newsletter. It's not a newsletter that comes out every month, so you won't be bombarded. It's every 3 months. But crucially in there, it will give you the dates of when the application is going to open for this year, and it gives you some hints and tips about applying. So the applications close every November. So you typically have 2 to 3 months to do your application, all of which, as I mentioned, is done online. Then in December and January of each year, we have what's called basically a review of all of those applications where they are all assessed and marked. Um, and so, funnily enough, just today, myself and Danny received nearly 300 applications, and we will filter those down to about 150, which we will interview in March and April. So this year, I can't remember the exact figure. I think it was about 1,500 applications we received, and that will be for about 50 places. So as I mentioned, it's a competitive process. You do not want to be leaving your application to the last minute. You should be thinking about this well in advance, thinking about how you can demonstrate your leadership skills to us, thinking about how you can strengthen and enhance a UK-Brazil relationship. So as I mentioned, each year, interviews take place in March and April. Again, pre-COVID, those interviews would take place face to face, and we do them in a variety of locations across Brazil. So normally we interview in 12 cities across Brazil, from the south, Porto Alegre, Curitiba, right up to Manaus, Recife, and Fortaleza in the north, as well as many of the cities that you would imagine: Brasilia, Sao Paulo, Rio, BH. So yeah, 12 locations in Brazil. I cannot speak for the other countries, but typically the big countries interviews would be offered in more than one location. Then each year in June, July time of each year, candidates that have been interviewed will find out if they have been successful. Then they have about 2-3 months to get ready, to get all their documents in order. We, as I mentioned, will help and will support their visa. So the candidate still needs to apply for the visa, but we will pay for it and provide the necessary paperwork to support them. And then the successful candidates will go to the UK in September each year, ready to start their master's degrees. Master's degrees in the UK are typically 1 year, and they start at the end of September, early October each year. So as I mentioned, it's the same cycle, it's the same calendar each year, but to look for the specific dates, check out the website each year, because it will then have the exact deadlines. So in terms of, as I've mentioned, things we're looking for, or what does the application form look like? So there are 4 key areas that will be assessed, both in the application form, but also in the interview. So one of those is leadership and influencing. And what we want to hear from in the essay and in the interview is concrete, demonstrable examples that you have the skills to be a leader, to be an influencer. Are you able to take people with you? When you talk, do people listen? Are people willing to follow you? So it is again up to the candidate to demonstrate that in their application form. It's up to them to choose the best example that they think shows that they are a leader. One important thing I would say here is leadership is not necessarily one thing, right? So when we talk about leadership, we do not necessarily mean someone that wants to be the chief exec of their country, or someone that wants to run for parliament in the future. You can have leaders at community level. You can be a leader in your professional subject area. There's lots of different ways to be a leader, and we understand and recognise that. Again, it's up for the candidate to prove to us that they are a leader in their chosen area, and they should use examples that have concrete evidence of that. The second sort of key area I've also previously talked about is networking. We want candidates or applicants that know the importance of networking. And again, they should provide examples of how they have used networking for their benefit. That can be in a professional capacity, it could be in a personal capacity, but we want people that know and understand they're not going to be able to sort of get to a position of success or be able to achieve their objectives solely working on their own. They're going to need to be able to take people with them and to know how to network to get what it is that they want. The other two key areas are about studying in the UK. So as mentioned, this is a UK government scholarship scheme. It's funded by the UK government. So what is it about the UK that interests you? What sort of UK links are you hoping to create with your country? Whether it's Brazil or Colombia or another country, you should be thinking about what is the current relationship between the UK and my country, or what's the current relationship between the UK and my country in this subject area, in this particular profession, and how can I enhance that? How can I move that relationship forward? How can I strengthen that? And again, that's up to the candidates to show to us. It's not for us to kind of say, we want you to strengthen the relationship in this area. One thing I would say is if you've done lots of research and you can't find much evidence of, say, the UK and Brazil working together on, say, science, that's a bad example because there's lots of evidence of the UK and Brazil working together on science. But if you can't find a strong example, then use that to your advantage. Think about, okay, I can't see much evidence of the UK and, say, Colombia working together on this. I want to be the person that develops that link, that strengthens that relationship, and describe to us in your essay on the application form. And if you're successful in the interview, talk to us about that. Tell us about how you're going to strengthen the relationship and move it forward. The other and the fourth and final point that we talk about in the application form, you need to write about and we will ask about in the interview, is your career plan. So what is it that you want to achieve? Where in life do you want to get to? And just like leadership, there's lots of different answers here. So one thing I would say is that we want people that are sorry, I was going to say optimistic, that's not what I mean. People that have ambition. Sorry, I couldn't remember the word. So we want people that have ambition, but we also want people to be realistic. So there is no point coming in and saying to me, I want to be the next president of Brazil. If you have no interest in politics, if you've never shown any commitment or interest in that field, because we're going to see through that fairly quickly, right? So we want people that have ambition, but it has to be realistic. And again, think about that UK and Brazil link. How are your career plan? How is that going to strengthen that? So those are the four key areas that will be asked on in the application form. Those are the four key areas that will be assessed in the interview and that we're interested in. So a bit more details just about the current Chevening scholars in the UK. So at the moment, there's more than 1,700 Chevening scholars in the UK from more than 160 countries undertaking their masters. So again, this is another key component of the scheme. You're not only going with people from your own country, you are mixing with a huge group of like-minded people from all around the world, and you're all kind of having this shared experience together of undertaking your masters in the UK. And this year there were 46 Brazilians currently in the UK. Numbers were slightly down this year due to some difficulties with COVID, but yeah, a big cohort. So just a few reminders here. Applications open every September to November. As I mentioned, Chevening has been running for the past 37 years. It will be running for probably the next 37. There is no sign of it going anywhere anytime soon. All of the information is on the Chevening webpage, but myself and Danny can answer any questions now. In addition to all the information being online, Chevening is on basically every social media site you can think of. So it's on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. If you are watching from Brazil, there is a general Instagram Chevening account, so Chevening FCDO, but we also have a specific Chevening Alumni Brazil account. So there we feature the work and the achievements and successes of our alumni. So if you're in Brazil or even not in Brazil and you want to know a bit more about our Chevening alumni here in this country, please feel free to follow that and to follow any of those accounts, to be honest, because there's lots of information online about kind of useful tips and hints for applying and what you should maybe think about in your application and not think about. One thing I would say is that if you apply 1 year and maybe don't get selected for interview, or if you do get selected for interview but you're ultimately unsuccessful, please don't let that deter you. Like, please think about how you might improve your application and come back. Previous year just gone, we had people that it was on their second or third time they were successful. So yeah, something to think about in future is, as I mentioned, it's a competitive process. We are really interested in diversifying our mix of Chevening scholars. Ideally, what we want is for our Brazilian scholar group to look like and represent Brazil. And we are very conscious at the moment that that is not the case. That if you looked at our group of 46 Brazilian scholars, you would probably not guess that they are from Brazil. And there are numerous historical reasons that everyone on this call probably knows about that is something that we are trying to address. And we want as much as possible, as much as we can, for our Brazilian scholars to look and sound like they're from Brazil. So as I mentioned, it can be you can apply for any subject area. We are not only interested in people from politics or interested in studying law or development. It can be in a whole range of areas, and it is up to you to choose a UK university. So again, we do not say we're only interested in people from Oxford or Cambridge. There's no age limit. And it's up to the candidate to prove to us why they're going to be a future leader, why they're going to be sort of important in their sector, that they know how to network, they know the importance of networking, why they want to go to the UK, what is it about the UK that interests them, and to detail to us a bit about their career plan, so that when we read it, we think, yeah, this person has a detailed plan. They know where they want to get to. They know what steps they need to put in place to get there. So I think that's everything from my side. I haven't seen the chat now, but I'm happy to answer any questions or comments if there are any.
Sure, James. What I'll go ahead and do is I'll go ahead and read some of the questions that have come in, and I'll also be able to highlight them on the screen. And I must admit, I almost had to end the webinar because there's no way I can follow up the cool British accent that you have. I almost had to end it. But let's go ahead and jump into these questions. The first one that we have, I believe, came from Felipe Castro. And either James or Daniel, feel free to tackle this question or tackle the questions as they come in. And so Felipe says, as a member of the LGBTQ community, can I mention experiences on academic events I hosted with my uni peers covering this topic, the LGBTQ diversity topic? I know there is a no identification policy ruling applications in the UK. And so I guess I'm not sure what the identification policy, but I'm sure you all know. If you could just elaborate and perhaps answer Felipe's question with regard to that subject.
Yeah, absolutely. So, with regards to the non-identification policy, I'm not sure exactly what Felipe is referring to, but I can talk a bit about. I mean, one of the reasons that we don't know the racial sort of breakdown of our alumni from Brazil is because we've never asked, to be honest. So, on the application form, you are asked to provide your gender, sexuality, but you do not have to provide that. So that is up to the candidate as to whether they are willing to provide that. And in relation to, can I mention experience on academic events? Yes, absolutely. As I mentioned, it's completely up to the candidate to demonstrate. If you think that's the best example that can show your leadership skills, then absolutely. Yeah, I mean, in terms of sort of LGBT representation in Chevening, we actually normally do very well in terms of getting a large. We've worked with quite a lot of LGBTQI groups in the past, and we've received high levels of applications. We have had successful trans Chevening scholars. We have had successful Chevening scholars in wheelchairs, etc. So there's been a whole range of Chevening scholars. I'm talking about just from Brazil here, not from other countries. But yeah, absolutely, I would say it's completely up to you to think about what example do I have that best shows my skills in leading, organising people, and to use that on your application form.
James, one other quick question that I have seen come up with the TalentoTotal candidates that we have in our program is kind of gaining an understanding of the timeline. Because you have to be accepted by Chevening and you have to be accepted by the university, can you give us a hypothetical timeline of how that would play out? Would you apply to the schools right now and then Chevening in 2021? When is the usual application cycle for a UK school? Does that vary from what you may see traditionally in the United States, which is September? So if you could just walk us through like what the timeline would look like for someone who wanted to study at a university and apply to that university, but also work in the right time frame to be accepted by Chevening as well.
Yeah, sure. So the timelines for Chevening and the UK universities overlap, like they're kind of the same. But the timeline for the UK universities is longer than for Chevening. So, for example, I would say you should start doing your research in what would be Northern Hemisphere summer, so Southern Hemisphere winter. So, say June, July time, even earlier, as I mentioned, like you want to be organised and to have really good answers on your essays. But say June, July time, even maybe a bit before, you start doing your research. Okay, I want to go to the UK to study an MSc in engineering. Right. What are the best schools in the UK? What are the best universities? What are the best courses? And you need to start looking and thinking about those, possibly contacting them separately to see if whatever grade you have is sufficient to get onto that course. Then the Chevening applications open in September. So you would start with your application. At the same time as doing your Chevening application, you will probably be applying for those courses. But this is the slight difference here, is the Chevening application will close in November, and most UK university sort of deadlines won't be probably until January, February, maybe even March time. So you will have slightly longer to apply for the UK university. Now, one thing where that sometimes creates some difficulty or confusion is on the Chevening application, you need to list your top three choices. Like my top choice is Birmingham, then Manchester, then Brighton in these courses. But sometimes, we understand that the candidate is still doing their research. So if you are selected to interview, that will not be until March or April. We will say, okay, on your application, you listed Birmingham, Manchester, Brighton. Is that still your preferred courses and your options, or have you changed? And if the candidate wants to change up until that point, they can do. So they can say, actually, Birmingham has now become my number one, or there's another one I want to put on there. So up until interview, the candidate can move those choices around. But after interview, there's no possibility. After interview, we need to know 1, 2, 3. These are your options, and you need to be able to get you need to get an offer from one of those 3 if you are accepted for Chevening. If we like you and we think, yeah, they're a great Chevening candidate, we're going to offer them Chevening, and the candidate subsequently fails to get onto one of those 3 courses, they would lose the Chevening funding, and it cannot be carried over to the next year. So you could not say, oh, I'll work on my university application more, or I want to move it to a different university. So just like how I mentioned with career plan, be ambitious, but be realistic. Be realistic with the courses that you are applying for. Please don't apply for 3 courses at Oxford if you know that you don't have the grades to get on there, because you will get rejected. And then even if we offer you the Chevening scholarship, there's nothing we can do. We do not interfere with UK university processes. So again, it's really important for the candidate to speak to their university, to explain, this is the grade I have from Brazil. Do you think I would be accepted? And this is the proof I can offer you. So yeah, be ambitious, like I'm saying. Please don't sort of go in at the lower level, but you need to be realistic about. But remember, it's 3 choices. So I would say, maybe be really ambitious with one and think, oh, it'd be great if I could get onto that course at that university. Be a sort of a little more realistic with one, and then slightly more realistic with the other, so that you've got a bit of a sort of safety net. If you've got 3 choices basically.
Awesome. And the next question comes from Daynan Rodriguez. I hope I'm saying that correctly. I apologize if I am not. And her question is, can you please talk about some of Chevening's initiatives to increase diversity and inclusion during the application process? Any suggestions of how new applicants may contribute to those initiatives? And also, James, if you could just frame as well in your response how you all look at diversity also in terms of geographic diversity and trying to kind of move out of these epicenters of Rio and Sao Paulo and Bogota and Medellin as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I can talk sort of on the sort of Brazil side, but I know a lot of the initiatives that we're doing here are being done centrally by Chevening and also lots of other countries. So just before Christmas, myself and Danny had a call with our counterparts in Mexico, who were doing a lot of the similar things that I'm gonna talk about now. So when I talked about sort of Brazil, Chevening Brazil's diversity problem, this is not only a problem that has been faced by Brazil, right? This is probably not only a problem faced by many scholarship schemes. So one of the ways that we are trying to increase the diversity in Brazil is exactly through things like this, is exactly through reaching out to organizations. So just a few months ago, myself and the British Embassy wrote to, I think the latest count was about 30 organisations in Brazil that we either found from research or that were recommended to us, all of whom are working on diversity and leadership skills, letting them know about Chevening, and we're partnering with organisations such as yourself. So one of the key things we've found is that obviously the awareness isn't there in sort of many different sectors and many different geographical locations. So we're trying to increase that awareness because, we know that the top law firms based in Sao Paulo and Brasilia and Rio, they know about Chevening. You don't need to worry about that. And we get, very strong applications coming from those sectors. But that is not the only sectors. That is not the only people that we want to be hearing from. In terms of sort of geographical location and how we're trying to increase the numbers, particularly in Brazil from the north and the northeast, is, again, pre-COVID, we were doing increased visits there. We were going to these locations and going to these universities and speaking to the NGOs and businesses and saying, look, there's this scheme, you should consider it. Please do not think because it's British government that it's not for you. We, like I mentioned, we want a representation of Brazilian society. Now we're still doing that. We're still doing that online, and we're reaching out to as many of these organisations as we can. One other thing that we are looking at, I noticed in the question, any suggestions of how new applicants can contribute to those initiatives. So our scholars that have just got back from the UK have been really active in regards to trying to increase diversity. And they have actually been doing some volunteering, mentoring of candidates. So that is not something that we can do as the British Embassy. We cannot mentor people because that would almost be sort of choosing people over another. But if there were people that were interested in mentoring, we would be able to link them up with alumni, and we would be able to let them know about scholars that are happy to mentor and to help applicants. So yeah, I said I'm just going to pass over to Danny now to see if there's anything I've missed there on any of that diversity points.
Well, I would just add that something that we did last year for application process that I also think is quite important is because also due to COVID, we increased a lot our digital presence through social media and through many online channels. And we tried to develop new strategies in terms of content and really being more precise on how to reach a specific audiences. So we made a big effort in how our posts, for example, from the British Embassy promoting Chevening could reach more people from northern states or northeastern states. So what I would say regarding that is that if you, and because the question asked also how people could contribute. So there's still a lot of promotion from Chevening that happens from people to people and from word of mouth. So if you know a diversity organization, or if you know a group of people or someone from a different region or from a specific group that you know or think might be qualified for Chevening, please do share that. Please do. We do a lot of promotion for Chevening on social media. And that's why we also encourage you to follow the embassy's channels and Chevening channels, because a lot of information of Chevening is available there. But so what I would say is encourage you to share our post and spread the word. But we are also focusing a lot on increasing our digital presence on a wider sense, so we can reach specific people that we wouldn't otherwise. And that's really interesting about social media and about the digital presence, is that we are able to get to a wide range of people if we are a little bit more precise in what we're focusing on. So that's just what I would add on that matter.
And one more thing I would just add, kind of going back to the introduction that I made. This webinar is happening because of a current Chevening scholarship recipient who's in Edinburgh, made this connection between the Chevening Brazil team and TalentoTotal, and she's Afro-Brazilian. So she's probably, representing a very large proportion of the Brazilian population that usually has been underrepresented in these types of programs. It looks like we're going to go over, James and Danny. If you don't mind sticking around for maybe another 5 or 10 minutes, we'll try to answer as many questions as we can. And for the questions that we don't get to, we'll be able to kind of log those questions and maybe get responses to you by following up with an email or responses directly from James and Danny. So the next question comes from Layani. I think I'm saying that correctly, I hope. And her question is, if the candidate was selected in the interview, but she failed in the IELTS test, is there a chance to be accepted into Chevening without the test?
So as I mentioned, so Chevening no longer requires evidence of even English language. So you will not need to prove to us an IELTS or a TOEFL score. But what you will need to prove it to is the UK university. And it kind of comes back to my earlier point that if we offer you, or if you're successful in getting offered for Chevening scholarship, but you are rejected from your UK university because of English language. So if you meet the sort of academic level, but you cannot pass the English level, again, you would lose the scholarship. So that's not so much a question for Chevening. It's more one that you need to make sure, whichever university you choose, that you either have the sufficient level or you're confident that by taking the test that you can get to that level. And UK universities have slightly different requirements. So I'm afraid there's no sort of one standard I can say. And bear in mind that some universities might have a different level for the different course. So if it's a really popular hard course, the English level to get onto that might be slightly different, even in the same university for another course. So yeah, it's not really one for Chevening. We used to require, I think this question is because up until only last year, candidates had to prove to us their English language. We no longer need that because, as I mentioned, the application and the interview is all done in English, and they need to still be accepted onto their UK university, which will ask for that. So yeah, it's kind of a case of do your research, make sure you can reach the UK university level, because if you fail that, and even if we offer it, you would lose the scholarship.
Excellent. And the next question is a big one that fits the current situation that we are in globally. The interviews, will they be going online because of COVID this year?
They will. So last year, I think we did about 1 or 2 weeks. I certainly did some interviews in Recife, and I think we did a few in Brasilia and Porto Alegre before they were all moved online. So last year we interviewed about 170 people. I think about 20 of those were face-to-face, and then unfortunately, they were moved online. This year they will be online. Going forward, we want to return to be able to do them face-to-face. It's much easier and much nicer, both for us as the interviewers, but also for the candidate to be able to have that interaction. Because although it's called an interview, and it is an interview, you're being interviewed for a scholarship, it's much more of a conversation. It's much more about, like, tell us about your plans and how are you going to sort of develop UK-Brazil relationship in regard to medicine or whatever it may be. And obviously, to be able to have that sort of free-flowing conversation, it is much easier face-to-face. But yeah, this year, so for anyone that has already applied, they will be online. But for anyone interested in applying, hopefully in the future we will so from next year they will be back to being face to face.
Awesome. The next question comes from Andressa, and she says, during the Chevening program, if you would like to do some voluntary work in the UK, are there any specific fields to work at Chevening, or to work in or at, that Chevening is more active?
No, in a word. I mean, the fact that we've got 1,700 scholars from around the world just kind of represents the breadth of subjects that we have. So even our 46 current Cheveningers from Brazil in the UK, we have got people doing law, business, medicine. We have got people doing conservation. We've got people looking at tropical forestry. We've got people looking at sexual health. We've got engineer. It's a real broad range. And the UK probably has a charity or an NGO or an organisation in every single professional area. And it would be up. Again, one thing we really encourage is for our scholars to get involved with NGOs and charities and volunteering work in the UK. And that's one of the reasons why the stipend is quite generous, because we do not want our scholars to be able to have to work in the UK to be able to afford food and to live, etc. So if the scholar wants to work, and this, when I say work, I'm now talking about paid employment, under the UK visa rules that they would be under, they are allowed to work up to 15 hours a week in paid employment. But in terms of voluntary work or helping out organisations, there is no limit. Chevening can help with that. So we can help suggest organisations, but it would probably mostly be up to the scholar to organise that themselves. If there's a particular NGO or group you're interested in the UK, reach out to them. I have no doubt they would be happy to hear from you and to welcome your help.
Awesome. Jump to the next question from Victoria, and this is also COVID related. What will happen if travel continues to be suspended because of COVID? So I guess this is kind of, are we going online? Would the scholars even leave their home country?
Yeah, good question. And obviously it's all quite flexible at the moment. So for our current scholars, we did manage to get them all to the UK. So of those 46, they are Brazilians, they're all in the UK. So this was September, October last year, when there were some flight restrictions, but unfortunately flight restrictions have toughened up since then, especially in relation to the new COVID variant in the UK. And I see there's now another new COVID variant in Brazil. So they're probably going to be strengthened even further if they haven't been already. I can imagine, but I mean, this is some guesswork. If there are still flight restrictions in, say, September of this year, when our scholars are due to be going to the UK, we would not be cancelling those Chevening scholarships. We would be looking at moving those online. So it might be a case that maybe the scholars need to start their courses online from Brazil. What would happen there is we would still pay the tuition fee, and the scholar would still actually get a monthly allowance, but that allowance would be dependent on each country, the cost in each country. So it would not be the same cost, the allowances they would get in the UK, but they would still get an allowance because we understand and we want our scholars to be sort of focused on their studies. That should be their focus of area, and not having to work to also obviously afford to be able to live. Hopefully we won't be in that situation, but that is what would happen if we were in that situation later in the year.
Okay, I think we'll take one more and then proceed to wrap it up. And Carol, if you can, please provide a few links to reference Chevening. Could be the website, also could be their social media handles in the chat. And the last question that we'll take from Francini is, do we need any recommendation letters for the Chevening application?
Yeah, good question. And it's probably something I should have talked about. So you do. So how it works is in the application, you need to, so when you're applying, you provide the names and kind of just titles and addresses of 2 references. Again, it's up to you to think about who are the references that are most applicable to me. So whether it's academic references or it's, whether it's professional sort of former employer references. But at the time of application, those references, you don't need to actually submit the reference. You just need to provide the details of who will submit the reference. Then if you are selected for interview, then you will be asked to, the candidate will be asked to go to those references and produce the reference. And then how it happens is they upload them to the online system so that when you come to interview, we are able to see them on screen. We already have your references by the time you arrive for interview. So you have a long time to get those references. At the time of application, you just need to provide the details of these are the people I'm going to ask. And as I mentioned, if you're successful with getting to interview, you will need to provide those in advance of the interview.
Awesome. Well, that was the last question. So I just want to say thank you to you both, Daniel and James, for coming onto our channel. While you're here, please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button. We're going to continue to provide more content and more exposure to these amazing opportunities and programs that exist throughout the world. So looks like James dropped off there. But I guess you're holding down the fort now, Daniel. But again, thank you for coming on. And we look forward to working with you in the future. Here's James. He's come back.
Yeah. Apologies.
There you go. James, I was just saying thank you to you and Danny for coming on. We hope to continue to work with you over the next several months and years. And we have a lot of fantastic candidates in our program. And even though I'm a Yankee and a gringo from the U.S., I really encourage a lot of our candidates to pursue opportunities in the United Kingdom as well as Europe. So thank you once again. And again, this webinar will be recorded and posted to our YouTube channel today. So please share it. If you have any friends or any colleagues who are interested or you think would be interested in the Chevening program, please do share. And thank you all so much once again, and we will see you next time. See you soon. Thanks.
Brilliant. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you very much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Ciao.